Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. Yes, I know, another surprise live, but I want to talk about Novak Djokovic and the Australian Open because we've got a few things that have happened at the moment. So for those of you that don't know, yesterday it was announced that Novak Djokovic had a medical exemption approved as to why he couldn't be vaccinated or be double vaxxed in order to play in the Australian Open. That created outrage. And this morning it is revealed that he had the wrong type of visa and his exemptions weren't valid. So technically he's going to be returned back home. Now the word is that he's looking to file an urgent injunction in the courts to have it all overturned. So we've got a little bit of a debacle here, and it's a bit of a joke. Yes. I mean, there were plans yesterday that people were going to boycott the tennis. They were going to boycott everything. So I thought we'd have a chat about that and see what everybody thought about it. Now I've pulled up, hello the Fox. Victoria refused. Well, Victoria always said, and the Premier always stated that he wasn't going to be allowed to play. My understanding is it's interesting because Atagi, who does the technical advice for exemptions, comes under the federal government jurisdictions. My understanding is, and I could be totally and utterly wrong, is that the medical exemptions have come from the feds to be implemented by the states. But I've got the Atagi guidelines here. Hello, Osbel. Haven't seen you around for a while. I've got no chat at the moment either, so I can see it on the screen here. It's just not loading for me. How are you? We're talking about Novak because Djokovic has created. It's been quite a bit of a stir at the moment. They were talking about making him as an au pair because then, well, there's been lots of jokes about it. I've suggested that they send him to Christmas Island to stay. So let's have a look at what the documentation says about the exemptions. Because what I find really interesting in this is even though I am not a doctor, I can't see how he could be a professional athlete with these conditions. So this is from Atagi, expanded guidance on temporary medical exemptions. So this goes along the lines of the immunity register and specifically for COVID-19. So it says COVID-19 have been demonstrated to be safe and effective, and as such are recommended for all Australians 12 years of age. There are a few situations where a vaccine is contraindicted, and such medical exemption is expected to be rarely required. These, as I said, these are the conditions. Vaccinations may be reasonably temporarily deferred for individuals with some major medical conditions, undergoing major surgery or hospital admission for a serious injury. Typically, these time-limited conditions for the medical treatment and therefore temporary exemptions are considered appropriate. These exemptions are only to be given where a suitable alternative COVID-19 vaccine is not readily available for the individual. All COVID-19 brands must be selected on the medical exemption form. For MR COVID-19 include inflammation, cardiac illness within the past 6 months, myocarditis, pericarditis, endocarditis, acute rheumatic fever, or acute rheumatic heart disease, or acute deep compressed heart failure. Now, how is he wouldn't be able to play tennis with any of those. For COVID-19 vaccines, Atagi recommends that vaccination can be deferred in those with PCR confirmed SARS infection until complete recovery from acute illness, which may be up to 6 months, regardless of disease severity. chronic symptoms following long COVID is not a contradiction to COVID-19 vaccines, but does warrant a clinical discussion with the patient. Now, they're saying that they're actually trying to say that this occurred because of the fact that he had COVID, but he had it in 2020. Hello, Angela. So, again, it has to be within the last 6 months. For all COVID vaccines, severe adverse effect attributed to a previous dose of COVID-19 vaccine and without any other cause identified. An adverse event is considered serious if it requires patient hospitalization or results in persistent or significant disability incapacity, or has been reported to the state and territory adverse event surveillance system, has been determined following a review and of the opinion of an experienced immunisation provider specialist to be associated with a risk of a recurrence of a serious adverse event if another dose is given, if the vaccine is a risk to themselves or others during the vaccination period, process due to a severe neurodevelopmental condition, autistic spectrum disorder, they may warrant a temporary vaccine exemption. Specialist services may be available to facilitate the safe administration of vaccines. Assessment of an adverse event following immunisation requires detailed information on the event, a determination of the likelihood and causal link with the vaccination. So serious include thrombosis, medical significant illness, myocarditis, potentially life-threatening events, anaphylaxis, or persistent and significant disability like Guillain-Barré syndrome. These reactions do not include expected or local reactions known to occur within the first few days of vaccination. Attributing a serious adverse event to a previous dose of COVID-19 may require discussion with the individual's GP, local immunisation service, and relevant medical specialists. Temporary exemptions for longer than 6 months are not recommended in the first instance. They should be reviewed as the individual recovers from their acute illness. This time limitation will allow individuals who can safely be vaccinated to be protected. It may take a few weeks for any changes status to be updated. It should be noted that an individual may not be optimally protected from COVID-19 until they've completed the recommended vaccine. So anyway, that is the ATAGI guidance. So I'm very interested to see now what happens. So that's the ATAGI guidance. Now, I've got this as well. Medical exemption to COVID-19 vaccination guidance. This is the instructions for medical practitioners. I actually went to the Victorian Department of Health site. Is that here? See, Department of Health. COVID-19 guidance. This is the guidance for medical practitioners. So, and the form I think they've got to fill out. So I've just pulled this off the internet. I've just pulled this off. So it says this is to determine whether the patient meets the Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation listed reasons for medical exemptions. Further is in the clinical guide. So there's the guide there. So for Pfizer, history of anaphylaxis or severe adverse event. Moderna. So for AstraZeneca, oh really? Joanne just been informed the Serbian president will fight. So then they're all the issues for each of the vaccines. So here's another one: medical exemption, family history of any adverse effect of following immunisation, presence of chronic underlying medical condition, minor, common, or expected side effects to previous vaccine, other types of allergies. Can I mean more? Vaccines, medication, requesting a preference of COVID-19. Yeah. So, and it's only for 6 months. So whatever's happened, it had to have happened within the last 6 months. So here, remember we said an adverse event means inpatient hospitalization. Yes. Osbel, to answer your question, I have to show my Service Victoria login, which has my vaccination certificate attached we can't actually enter the venue without our vaccinations, like without showing vaccination. And I couldn't get the job without having vaccination. I actually had to attach it. So anyway, that is the guidance to medical professionals. Now, a doctor who has been on the front line of COVID sort of pointed out yesterday that for his exemption to have occurred for what was listed as medical exemptions, he couldn't understand how he could be a world #1 tennis player with all those exemptions. But as far as I'm aware, there are no non-medical exemptions. You can only get it. They have to show vaccination to have a meal. Yeah. So it's pretty, yeah, it's I can't see the chat, so I apologize if I'm missing conversations. So let's just have a look what's happened in the last 24 hours. So there was huge outrage yesterday because the word had got out that Djokovic had got an exemption. Now, no one is putting their hand up for this debacle, but my understanding is, and I don't know how this has happened, but this morning it's come out that Border Force have rejected his visa. And it's also been alleged that the Victorian government was asked by the feds to allow him in, and the Victorian government said no. So I find it really hard to believe that the Victorian government would have given him an exemption if they weren't going to let him in. But anyway, so Novak Djokovic has convinced 2 separate panels who did not know his name, age, or country of origin that he's entitled to enter the country without a COVID-19 vaccination. The Serb will defend his Australian Open title at Melbourne Park this month, after confirming overnight that he's on his way with the blessings of medical authorities. Now, the other thing that is really getting people really upset is the fact that he's not having to do his 14 days quarantine. So not only is he unvaccinated, it would seem, he was not going to be here for 2 weeks. He was going to skip the quarantine process and would be allowed to play it. Now, if you come from overseas and you happen, well, first of all, you can't get in the country, can't get into the country without a vaccine. But if you happen to get into the country, you actually have to you actually have to quarantine for 14 days before you're let out. So he was going to be playing without So he's not publicly disclosed his grounds for the exemption, but there are just a handful of reasons that it would be granted. Tennis Australia said the process was above and beyond what a normal visitor or returning traveller would have to go through. Victorian Government Minister Jalal Pulford said the blind assessment process ensured nobody knew the identity of any of the 26 related people who applied for exemption. Novak is coming to play the Australian Open with an exemption because he's the biggest tennis star of them all, she said. There you go, it's been admitted. That is why he got in. He's coming because he's been able... he isn't coming. He's coming because he's been able to demonstrate through this process that he has eligibility under the rules that apply to everybody else in the country. Lots of people in Victoria community will find this to be a disappointing outcome, but the process is the process. The responsibility for assessing his applications fell on 2 separate panels, neither of which would have known whose application they were processing. They're considered by not 1 doctor that you know, but 6 that you don't. Under the process established late last year, anyone coming out for the Australian Open who is not vaccinated has to first apply to Tennis Australia for an exemption. Tennis Australia established an independent panel to assess these applications, which have personal information removed so that the panel do not know whose application they are assessing. According to Tennis Australia's Chief Medical Officer, Caroline Broderick, the panel was made up of experts in the field of immunology, infectious diseases, and general practice. The documents were provided to the panel with all the personal information removed, including name, age, and country of origin. We felt confident that the panels didn't know who they were. Were players, whether they were player support or partners. Of more than 3,500 player support teams and other staff seeking to enter Australia, only 26 applied for exemptions. The independent, any application that passes the assessment from TAs Independent panel is then assessed by a separate review panel established by the Victorian Health Department. The Independent Medical Examination Review Panel then decides whether applications meet the criteria for exemption. Tennis Australia CEO Craig Tilley said the process was extremely thorough and only a handful of exemptions were granted. For tennis players, it was a process that goes above and beyond what everyone else has to go. Under the ATAGI guidelines, both TA and the Victorian government used in their assessments, there are just a handful of reasons a person may be exempt, and most are temporary. We just went through them. An acute major medical condition, such as undergoing surgery, any adverse event attributed to a previous dose of COVID-19 vaccination, evidence of a PCR-confirmed COVID-19 infection in the previous 6 months. The only one that would be valid was if he had COVID in the last 6 months. That's the only, because all the rest, there's no way he could be world number one. If a person is a risk to themselves or others during the vaccination process due to a developmental or mental health disorder. Djokovic has not disclosed his grounds for exemption. He's known to have contacted COVID in May 2020, but it's not known if he's had a second infection, and that they didn't reveal the reasons. Tilley said he was not aware of Djokovic having COVID-19 recently. This is ultimately up to Djokovic to disclose because of his personal medical information. Tilley said he would encourage Djokovic to be open about the reasons for the exemption. So, under ATAGI guidelines, people with vaccination exempt are subject to the same restrictions as people who are vaccinated. That means Djokovic will be free to attend restaurants, events, and venues in the same way a person who has been fully vaccinated is. He's also not required to go under quarantine upon arrival in the country. What? Tennis players competing at the Australian Open are subject to much greater testing than the general public. They are required to take rapid antigen tests every day and be required to undergo supervised tests 3 times in the first 5 to 7 days they were on site. So there you go. I mean, it would be quite ironic if he pulled up a positive antigen test, let's just say. So then we find out, so that was yesterday. Today, tennis world number one Novak Djokovic is set to be deported from Australia. After his visa was cancelled this morning, the federal government said. The 34-year-old landed at Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport late last night and was detained by Australian Border Force. In a statement, the ABF confirmed Djokovic did not meet the entry requirements and had his visa cancelled. Non-citizens who do not hold a valid visa on entry or have had their visa cancelled will be detained and removed from Australia, the statement said. Prime Minister Scott Morrison reacted to the decision, just tweeting that rules are rules. No one is above the rules. The Fox, the mental health one possibly could be. Who gave him the visa, says Grant. That's a really good question, Grant. ScoMo tweeted, Mr. Djokovic's visa has been cancelled. Rules are rules, especially when it comes to our borders. No one is above these rules. Our strong border policies have been critical to Australia having one of the lowest death rates in the world from COVID. We are continuing to be vigilant. He's yet to challenge the decision in court, but the federal court says it's not received any application from his lawyers. The ABC understands he'll be taken to a quarantine hotel while any legal appeal is processed. I've got an alert. I'm going to be keeping my eye on the matter and see whether documents are filed. Most of the COVID cases have been public interest cases, so I'm hoping this is going to be a public interest case so that we can follow along. Because would you like to follow this case? So he touched down at 11:30 last night after a 14-hour flight from Dubai. His coach and support team were allowed to enter the country, but Djokovic was detained for several hours while his visa application was processed. Djokovic's father told Serbian media that his son was waiting alone in a room at Tullamarine Airport under armed guard. He said the players' supporters would gather on the street if the situation was not resolved. This is a fight for the liberal world, not just a fight for Novak, but a fight for the whole world. Djokovic's coach, Gordon Ivanisevic, posted a photo to Instagram of himself and others of the Serb support team waiting at the Melbourne airport with the caption, "Not the most usual trip down under." Djokovic's visa drama has derailed his pursuit of his 10th Australian Open singles title. The Serb is currently level with Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal with 20 Grand Slam titles. Former tennis player Sam Groth said the Djokovic saga was overshadowing the build-up to the Australian Open. It's creating backlash, not just the people in Australia, because I feel like the Australian population and the Victorian people have been very vocal about how they feel about Novak coming in the first place, he told Channel 9. The question is how we're going to look to the rest of the world. It's turning a little ugly. Earlier, the Victorian government said that Djokovic had received a COVID vaccination exemption to compete at the Australian Open following a rigorous review process. So we had been told that it had been rejected and he'd reviewed it. It was yesterday, the decision was met with widespread criticism, but Tennis Australia and the Victorian government officials said Djokovic was not given any special treatment. So now we've got it's now turned into a diplomatic stoush. So Serbia's president has vowed to fight for Novak Djokovic to be able to enter Australia after the tennis star became stranded at Melbourne Airport due to an issue with the visa. President Alexandra Vujovic wrote on Instagram that he'd spoken to Djokovic and vowed to use all the diplomatic avenues to allow available to Serbia to help the player. I told our Novak that the whole of Serbia is with him. Our bodies are doing everything to see that the harassment of the world's best tennis player is brought to an end. Oh dear. Harassment? Djokovic has been vocally opposed to COVID-19 vaccinations and has refused to confirm whether or not he's vaccinated. The world #1 tennis player has been granted a medical exemption to compete at the Australian Open, but his visa was cancelled. As authorities discovered, the visa his team applied for did not allow for medical exemptions. They applied for the wrong visa. That is what happened. They applied for the wrong visa. It says, discovered the visa his team had applied for did not allow for medical exemptions. Apply for the right visa and you can come in. How is that harassment? Before Serbian president vowed to intervene, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison had been unwilling to become involved, saying it was a matter for the Victorian government. After Djokovic's visa was cancelled, Mr. Morrison tweeted that rules were rules and he would not get special treatment. Our strong border policies. On Radio National, Sports Minister Richard Colbeck denied that the Australian Border Force had asked the Victorian government for a last-minute approval for Djokovic. He also said that border requirements were paramount above and beyond the reputational harm that refusing Djokovic might do to Australia. Serbia's president, however, said he would fight for Novak to play in line with all the norms of international law. Serbia will fight for Novak, truth and justice, he wrote. Novak is strong, as we all know. So now they're fighting for truth and justice because he applied for the wrong visa, right? This all comes down to not having the correct visa. So essentially, so you applied for the wrong visa. But the backlash and the outcry of Australians and particularly Victorians. I mean, Victoria had 6 lockdowns, and in the last 12 months, and our cases are going through the roof. In fact, what's the latest case numbers today? Have they released them? Well, Tasmania's records 751. Victoria has hit 22,000. What? 22,000 cases. And New South Wales is at 34,994 cases. So, in fact, yeah, I know somebody that tested positive to COVID. Yeah, so we're having huge issues. Interesting. I've just picked up this story. Have a look at this story. Bouncy Castle actually claims the life of an 8-year-old girl in claim. 8 other children hurt. Remember we had that incident in Tasmania? An 8-year-old has died from her injuries after strong winds blew a black bouncy castle several metres into the air. It's the same thing that's happened. Last month, 6 children died in Tasmania. 9 children were taken to hospital, 2 of them serious. The Guardian reported the town was holding a minute's silence to honour the victim of the accident. Last month, 6 children died in Tasmania. So the same thing. So prompted calls for better regulation on bouncy castles worldwide. 2019, 2 children died in an accident in China. 2017, an inflatable structure at a restaurant in Spain was carried for metres by strong winds, killing a 6-year-old. And in November, a Spanish court sentenced the owners of the restaurant to a year in prison in relation to the incident. Yeah, so anyway, that's interesting. It's exploding in the USA, Meemaw. Look, it's exploding everywhere. And my thing is, everyone had been putting their ducks in the vaccination line, and nobody thought of anything else. I mean, we can't. We just have trouble. It's just going everywhere. And our hospital systems are at breaking point. But yeah, Tasmania's just recorded 751. I think, is Adelaide nearly 1,000? I think South Australia's not looking very good. I know Queensland's not looking very good. WA has got 6 or something. So every state in Australia at the moment has got an issue. Northern Territory's got one new case, but put my son and son back in lockdown again. I do have to go shopping, but going at 6 a.m. and double masking, says me. Well, Grant says that's just weak politics, and I like trading stocks, so ScoMo is not my friend. Well, see, I've been able to boost her, so that's the thing, I'm boosted, but and there was one tennis player who had Sputnik, the Russian thing, and didn't get an exemption, even though she didn't have a recognised COVID vaccination. So there's that tennis player as well wasn't allowed in. So it's just really weird how I didn't spell Djokovic right either. Djokovic. So, yeah, it's really bizarre is what's going to happen here. So questions. Do you think you'd be allowed in? Do you think you should be allowed to play? I mean, if you were a tennis player that got vaccinated because you wanted to come and play in the Australian Open, how do you reckon you'd feel? And if we do not get on top of it, we might have to have a nationwide 5th stage lockout. The thing is, the Fox, I actually put on my Facebook page about having a lockdown because the medical, all the healthcare workers are calling for it because they're just exhausted. And I got slammed so hard. I got slammed so hard. Oh, cool! I've got a new shift. Ooh. I've just got some, 18th, 20th, 21st. Yes, I've just got some more Australian Open shifts. I'm on night shift tonight at the Australian Open. I'm doing 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then I'm not working. It looks like I'm not working again until the 18th, which is interesting. So I've got no work next week. which is interesting. So that's that one. And then I've got the 18th, and then I've got the 20th. So it looks like I've got the 7:30 to 3 shift. And it looks like I'm going to be, oh, hang on. Maybe I've got the wrong, need to look. Yeah. Night, all areas, yeah. Grands. Oh, that's Flemington. No, I don't want those shifts. They're not my shifts. That's not what I'm doing. No. So anyway, so what do you think? Do you think that he should be allowed in, or do you think that he shouldn't be allowed in? What are your thoughts on it all? Look, I would be very happy at home. Wear a mask, lots of masks with the surgery for masks too. Yeah, I have to take over. We do have disposable masks there as well. I had to do all the toilets the other day, and I was just walking around Rod Laver Arena and just cleaning all the toilets. Yeah. So anyway, so as I said, I'm really sorry because I'm having a lot of trouble seeing the chat's not loading for me, so I can't really see what everyone's saying. But the rules are the rules. The rules are the rules, and we know that all along, Victoria has said you're not coming in. So I don't know what happened yesterday, but there's a big a big outcry over it. I'm just going to remove this corner graphics at the moment because I can't see anything. I think we need to nip this in the bud. We do. Look, from my understanding, the way to deal with it, you have to stop the spread. How do you stop the spread? Locking down. The whole issue with this global pandemic is that it needed to be treated with a global pandemic. Yes, it does need to be treated like a global pandemic. And yes, Australia has got off very lightly at this point in time, but we're actually seeing what happens when you do nothing. It's what happens when nothing is done. And I have to say, I'm very disillusioned at the moment by National Cabinet, and I'm really disappointed at the states for even agreeing on changing the rules for close contact. I'm disappointed that they've rolled over. That really disappoints me, I have to say. I was really hoping that they'd be a lot tougher. But anyway, I just wanted to have this little bit of a chat and say hello to you all while I can, as I said, because I'm going to have to go to sleep later for night shift. But yeah, I just want to say hello to everybody. So I missed you all. And hopefully life will get back to some type of normality down soon and we can have our regular chats, because I have been following what KJ's been doing, and I tell you what, wowzers. Without high numbers, I was the only one in the drugs, not without masks on. So we have mask mandates. So we have mask mandates, which is fine. I'm CC, the man has an easy way, has a job, still an instruction. Of course. Of course. It is probably just for media coverage, yes. We could have got a lot better if leaders. Well, it was interesting because now that Victoria has to publish the health advice, it's deemed that the Victoria's Chief Health Officer, was calling for restrictions for nightclubs and that on New Year's Eve because he was and Christmas, because he was worried about spreading. Looks like he was right. Funny that he's a health expert. He was worried about the case numbers exploding, and the government didn't listen to him. And they only made the masks thing happen. And funnily enough, we've had cases explode. 22,000 cases today. So, and to be honest with you, if you really wanted to be, if you were going to be unvaccinated, would you really go to a country that have got case numbers exploding beyond explosion, like they're exploding? Not funny how that went. Huge embarrassment for Australia. Hello, Mr. Grind. Don't give him the exemption. Don't let him take his flight first to land in the country in the first place. I know I do catch you on replays, but really miss live chats right now. I'm attempting to it the best I can in this endless rabbit hole of cancelled cruises. Yes, cancelled cruises. Because isn't that they've had another bout of COVID, haven't they? I was hearing something about some cruise ship is stranded somewhere because no country will take them. So very, very interesting. But it is a huge embarrassment for Australia. Oh, look. Let me just show you something. I'll just show you something. This is what YouTube's done. They've demonetized this. There you go, limited. I'll go toe-to-toe with you on that. It was New South Wales government, not Princess Cruises. I think you'll find that he was blaming the New South Wales government, Ausbell. He was blaming Gladys. I think you'll find Ausbell. Yeah. My uncle and auntie was stranded on a boat as well for a while. They were in the middle of the world. But yeah. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Australia's really, it's interesting that we were all locked down for a quarter of the cases that what we've got now, but it seems to be everything's okay. You know, why is it okay now and not okay earlier? The other thing that's really interesting is that everyone is saying, you know, the economy is up and running and it's really, really good. Do you know how many little restaurants and fast food outlets in my area have closed due to COVID outbreak? They've had to close because they've got no staff. They've had to close because all their staff have been struck at once. They've had to close because they've got nobody to run their business. So they're losing money. They're still losing money. So, you know, one of the big ones here around me, really popular, has only gone, is takeaway only until further notice. So they're doing exactly what they were doing under lockdown. But some have closed. Some have closed for 2 weeks so that they can get the get COVID through their staffing because they just can't do it. You know, so they're losing money. So businesses are still losing money. So this having the economy open to keep it ticking is not working. Hey, Mama Duke. So, yeah. So anyway, that's my rant for the day. But I wanted to see what you all thought about the Novak Djokovic thing. It's a debacle. I know from what I was hearing, there were some players and officials that weren't really happy that he got in, particularly when, as I said, some of them did make sure that they did get the rules followed so that they could actually come to Australia. But unfortunately, we have the opposite problem. This Plus is way too busy. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, yeah. The other day, New Year's Day, you actually had to. If you wanted to have anything from a restaurant or anything, you had. No one was open. They were all closed because they had no staff. So, and coffee shops are not a way to run an economy. I mean, Mama Duke says, I'm extremely concerned. Don't know how anyone would feel otherwise. Oh, I'm concerned too. I really am. I'm of the let's do a national lockdown. But as I said, apparently, I get myself into trouble for saying that. But hey. So also, if you haven't, I did put up a new blog post yesterday. Let me just get you that link. That was, yeah, because it would seem I didn't follow. I should have listened to you all. See, I don't listen to people either. I should have listened to you all. But anyway, I didn't, and I got bitten again. So I called the blog, Am I Crazy or What? I am crazy. But now said person has got COVID, by the way. And I haven't been near them. But you know what? Every single cruise ship is banned. Planes can come in. They do not have to change the jump through hoops. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, also, they were cancelling planes. Look, I have one, but it's not one that I should do it more, Mama Duke. I should write more, but I don't, only because I don't have time. But I think I'm going to get into it because it's really therapeutic. And sometimes I find stuff and I go, gee, that's really good. Yesterday I discovered that I had emotional intelligence. I learned about, and I knew that. I was going to say, I can't share it because it doesn't work. So that's great. Actually, I'll have to go into. I don't think my chat works. I don't think my chat's working. I'll have to load it up. I'll have to do it another way. Yeah, so I want to blog more. On my website, it's on my website. I do have an option of doing subscriptions. So I'm actually toying with the idea about getting rid of the members on YouTube and moving it over to my website. And so you get access to the blogs and you get access to videos and you get access to all of that stuff. I'm still thinking about it. I haven't gone there yet, but that's what I'm thinking about, just not having memberships on YouTube and then controlling, and that way, because then have to pay anything to YouTube. I'm still thinking about it. It's not all, it's not all clear cut. I'm just waiting for everything to load now. Okay, so this is my blog here. Oh, I can see the chat now. Am I crazy or what it's called? And I will pin it. Pin. Right, so I've just pinned it, I think. Yeah. So yeah, go check that out. Have a look at it, and yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think. I was going to do I might do a follow-up video on it because I've been reading a lot about emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, and yeah, very, 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 very interesting. By the way, so yeah, it's and I'd also yeah. Because I'm very empathetic, I can actually see things from I can see things from other people's points of view often, and for some people take advantage of that, and some people don't. Yeah, so that's my blog post. Look, I've only got 5. I think I've got 6 on there, so I really need to get writing and stuff like that. So. But as I said, the said person that's referred to in there has just been diagnosed with COVID. And the person that he was with, yes, because he did it to me again, by the way, did it to me again, also may have it. So, that's all there. It's all there for you to read. But yes. Yeah. Oh, and someone else had said to me that I was highly sensitive, and I went, "Well, what does that mean?" And they said, "Well, because you can feel other people's emotions." I went, "Oh yeah, that's true. I can feel, and I can sometimes feel people's pain as well. People close to me, I can feel when they're in pain. I am usually a very good judge of character. I can usually tell. But yeah, so I don't know. But anyway, have a read of that. As I said, I might make it subscription only, and as I said, either make the membership on the YouTube really, really cheap, and then go with the subscriptions, and where you can get blog posts and that. But I've got to get myself sorted out. You're trying to think of yourself not as a victim anymore. Yeah. The thing that I found really freeing me more, and I write about it, was forgiveness, and saying to them, I forgive you. And it's not for them. You're not forgiving them for them, although it is. You're saying it to them and say, look, I forgive you. You're actually saying it for yourself, because you're freeing yourself of that burden. You're freeing yourself of that burden. So so from between New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, so he spoke to her New Year's Day, and so which was the Saturday. By the Sunday, I got a message to say that he was going to go back to her, and so now what are we? Anyway, and I'm really good. I'm doing it really, really great. So yeah. So anyway. But I talk about that in there, about having the empathy and understanding, and I can be really impulsive. I mean, the impulsive thing that I did was working on a website for him. The most impulsive thing I did was I deleted all his I sent him all his passwords and all the information that was on there, and then it's all come off my computer. So that was impulsive. But I do impulsive things too, and I'm not saying that I'm by any means perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But I've got I'm at least I acknowledge the fact, and I know when I need to pull away, and I know when, and I will say I need to step away. So anyway, yeah, so that's my blog post. So that's really interesting. It's look, I probably might write one. I might write one on this whole Djokovic saga debacle. But yeah. And I also sent him the link. I told him to read it. Like, I'm not saying anything, that I haven't said already to him. But anyway, so on that note, I've got to go. So I want to have, I know it's only 10, I know it's nearly 11:45, but I want to have something to eat because I need to have a sleep before my night shift tonight. So I'm going to have at least have a couple of naps because I didn't sleep very well last night. But yeah, so thank you for joining me. We'll keep an eye on this Djokovic saga and see what happens. So please make sure you can you hit like and subscribe, and yeah, and I'll catch you again soon. Alrighty. Yeah, so I will definitely yeah, Mama Duke, it might actually, I mean, me more, it might actually me more, it might actually help you. It might do, it might not. So I hope that it does, and that's what I'm hoping that does is it will help people who are going through something similar. The thing is, I said there was a little bit of correspondence today, and I said that he burnt his bridge. But you don't know. And yeah, I will do. All right, see you all. Yeah, thank you, Osbel. Osbel, I need to do a couple of lives with you on because I need some more pictures. Oh, and the other thing is, I'm hoping, I'd love to go to. I'm going to try, depending on what's going to happen. I'm going to see if I can get to Sydney for the Bros trial. I figure it would be great for me to be able to be there. So Sydney siders, watch out! I could be coming your way. Mama Duke, yeah, I had that as well. In fact, it's interesting because I talk about the fact that I knew something was going to happen New Year's Eve, although it didn't happen till New Year's Day. But all New Year's Day, my head was just really noisy, and I was at work and everything. And then as soon as it happened, like, he wanted to talk to me Sunday night, and I said, no, I don't want to talk to you because I knew what I was going to say wasn't going to be very nice. But you know what? The head's got, all of that noise in my head has gone. It's great. So anyway, I sent him a message and thanked him because that's what I do. Anyway, I will catch you all later, and I'll see you soon. Bye.